last module, we looked at how negative interactions can cause people to become more emotionally dysregulated. In this next section, we are going to explore how to become more effective in managing your relationships. The key to this is relationship mindfulness. Mindfulness is a term that we use to describe what we're doing with our attention. It really has to do with paying attention on purpose, right in the here and now, and without any interpretations or judgments. Relationship mindfulness is a specific application of mindfulness where we're paying attention to another person. We're really bringing all of our attention to the other person right now in this moment. And we're not doing it in a way that's judgmental or critical. It's just with interest and observation and description. Human beings are very emotional. Emotions are really important to us as a species. They give us a lot of information. Emotions have been around before language and actually complement our language. So one of the things that our emotion system does is, as a species, is it has a certain set of reactions that are absolutely normative, that people all around the planet, no matter what culture they're from, no matter what language they speak, they have certain emotional responses in certain situations in common. So in a dangerous situation, we feel afraid. In a situation when someone that we like is caring for us and responding to us in a way that we like, we tend to feel happy or even some kind of attraction or love. When we break the social rules and people are critical of us and we've somehow damaged our social group, we tend to feel embarrassed or ashamed. If we do something specific, we might feel guilty. And of course, when we lose something that was important to us, we feel sadness or grief, or when we don't get something that we really want, we feel disappointed. A secondary emotion is a reaction to the primary emotion. Now, it's a little hard to understand sometimes, but we have to think, gee, what would get us to react to our reactions? And a couple things. One is our reactions could be really painful. And so we learn to have a different reaction. So that's one way, kind of escape reaction. And of course, the other way we can develop a secondary emotion is through being judgmental. If I have judgments about what happened, that gets in the way of my primary emotion and creates a different secondary emotion.
Where are the car keys?
We've already spoken about this. You're not taking the car.
Why not?
Because the last time you wrapped it around a telephone pole.
That wasn't my fault. Jim completely distracted me. There's not even a scratch on the back bumper. Look, I really need the car.
You're not taking my car for a joyride.
I need to make my appointment. If Jason or Luke wanted it, you wouldn't even think twice about giving it to them.
They can be trusted to drive safely.
Well, I'm sorry I'm such a problem child. Look, I missed the bus and I really need to make my next session.
I don't want to hear about it. You're not taking the car and that's that.
I hate you! You're ruining my life!
Whoa, what's going on in here? The whole neighbourhood can hear you.
You deal with her.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'll deal with her, yeah? You sit there and finish your book and I'll deal with her as usual. Mary!
So you will recall when we first viewed this scenario that John was not particularly mindful of his interaction and impact on Mary. You may recall that he described her as a problem to be dealt with. In this situation, Mary's primary emotion was one of fear, that she would
ultimately be asked to leave the programme if she was late for her appointment. This primary emotion quickly turned to a secondary emotion of anger when she perceived Anne-Marie to be critical and judgmental of her. In the scenario, Anne-Marie was also fearful as a primary emotional state. She was somewhat worried that the car would be damaged again and was also concerned about Mary's safety. Her secondary emotion was also one of anger when she perceived that Mary was treating her with disrespect. John's primary emotion in this situation was one of fear. Fear that the neighbours would hear Anne-Marie and Mary arguing again. This also quickly turned to anger when Anne-Marie told John that it was his problem to deal with Mary. Let us consider the consequences of that earlier negative interaction. In the following scenario, you will see John's response to Mary's self-harm. You will see how being mindful of our primary and secondary emotions will be critical in maintaining the relationship, despite the difficult situation that John finds himself in.
Hey. Got here as quick as I could.
Hi Mary, I'm going to try and get you into triage as soon as possible, so it might be a bit of a wait, Mr. Matthews.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Now, as we look at the picture of John, we can see his facial expressions changing. It's not exactly that we can read his mind, but we know that his daughter hasn't done anything in the last 2 minutes. She hasn't done anything, but his emotion is shifting. Therefore, it's something in his head that's shifting his emotion. It's something he's paying attention to in himself, not something that his daughter's doing. So we could imagine, as his emotion seems to look more despondent, and his gaze goes down, you could imagine that he's maybe feeling a bit guilty. And so we could imagine that he may be judging himself. He may be thinking something like he's done something wrong, or this is his fault. He should have done something different. Of course, none of those things are true. They're judgments he's making that are creating more negative emotion.
I'm sorry I took your mother's side in the fight. I'm a bad father. You deserve better.
Now, if you look closely at John's face now, you can see another change. He looks away from Mary, and his face gets a bit harder looking. And again, we can't read his mind, but we can be sure that he's reacting to some particular kind of thought. In this particular case, it looks like he's getting angry. And if he's getting angry, and Mary's just sitting there, she's still bandaged, she's not done anything, then he's becoming angry in response to his thoughts. In particular, he's probably having some judgmental thoughts.
For God's sake, Mary, what happened? What did you do?
So the judgments ultimately create a lot of distance between them. And John is less available, and Mary is less willing to be available to him. And so there's less opportunity for support and love and care between them.
Here John is not mindfully in the present. Instead, he's in the future mindlessly worrying about what could potentially happen and thinking worst case scenario. As a result of this, he's experiencing very intense fear.
What if the next time she does this is the last time? If she keeps going like this, she'll kill herself.
Of course, John's response is completely understandable in light of the current situation. However, if John continues to respond in this way, it is likely that over time he will become burnt out, and this will possibly have serious consequences for both his emotional and physical health. Also, if John continues to respond in this way, not being mindfully in the present, being mindlessly in the future, it is likely that he's not going to be present in his relationship with his daughter Mary, and this could, over time, have a negative impact on their relationship.
I don't want this to keep happening.
I know. Neither do I. But we're in this together. And we'll find a way through it. Yeah?
In this last example, you will see that John is far more mindful of his interaction with Mary. Neither of them want this situation to continue. You can see that they're both willing to sit with the primary emotion of sadness, and although they accept that they can't change what has happened, at least there's hope that their future interaction will now be better. There's room for positive communication to develop. In the earlier scenario, John was not particularly effective in managing his response to conflict between Mary and Anne-Marie. Let's take a look at how things may have been different if John had taken time to step back, become more mindful, and respond to the situation differently.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What's going on in here?
You deal with her.
Why are you so upset? What's the problem?
She won't let me have the car.
And what do you want the car for?
I missed the bus, and if I miss another group appointment, I might get kicked out of the whole programme.
I know, you mentioned before how strict they are on attendance, yeah? And this is important to you.
I'm worried she's going to damage the car again.
Me too. But do you not think it's important that Mary gets to her appointment? I know the car was damaged, and you're worried that something might happen again, but is there any other way that we can solve this?
Look, I'm going into town later, but I could go now and give you a lift.
Is that okay?
Well, it would be easier if I just took the car myself. But if it means I'm going to make my session on time, I suppose it'll be fine. I'll get my folder.
We have just seen how John was far more mindful of the relationship in that scenario and how this changed the outcome for everyone. You can see how everybody's behaviours and emotions became far more regulated.